They thought it was a gift. It was full of death. 10 years of blood at Troy's walls, 10 years of siege. Then the Greeks sailed away, left only a massive wooden horse, an offering to the gods for safe voyage, they said. The Trojans celebrated, but inside the horse, in stifling darkness, breathed 50 of Greece's deadliest killers. Their hearts beat in time with the city's festival drums. If you're ready to watch one night erase a 1,000-year civilization, hit subscribe and comment. Do you trust gifts from enemies? This is the Trojan horse, and it's already inside. 10 years, 3,650 days. The Greeks woke to gull cries and the stench of burnt fat from sacrificial fires. The Trojans woke to arrow whistles and battering ram thuds. Achilles was dead. Hector was dead. Patroclus, thousands of nameless others, all fertilizer for the Scamandrian plain. The surviving heroes looked older than their fathers. In Odysseus's tent it smelled of pitch and despair. The map of Troy was scratched to shreds. "We can't breach the walls," he said, "so we'll walk through them." The idea came at night, watching carpenters repair a holed ship. Wood, a cavity, men inside. "We'll build a horse," Odysseus whispered, "huge, hollow, and gift it to the Trojans." Agamemnon laughed at first, then understood. Diomedes nodded. Nestor stroked his beard. "Madness, but we have no other." The plan was simple and monstrous. Burn the camp. Sail beyond the horizon. Leave the horse and one lyre. Return at night. Odysseus hand-picked the carpenters, hand-picked the warriors, the quietest, the cruelest. Hand-picked Sinon, a young Athenian with an angel's face and a serpent's tongue. "You stay behind," Odysseus told him, "and sell them the fairy tale." Sinon smiled. "I was born for this." They felled sacred oaks on Mount Ida under cover of darkness. The horse took shape, 40 feet tall, belly vast enough for 50 armored men, joints sealed with pitch, a hidden hatch beneath the tail, eyes of polished obsidian that seemed to watch. Inside, Odysseus drilled his death squad. No coughing, no shifting weight, no mercy. "We are ghosts until the city sleeps." On the final night, they loaded supplies, water skins, daggers, oil for the gates. Diomedes sharpened blades. Menelaus stared at the distant walls where Helen watched from a tower, her golden hair catching torchlight. At dawn, the Greeks set fire to their own camp. Black smoke billowed like a funeral pyre. Ships launched with theatrical wails of defeat. The fleet vanished beyond Tenedos, sails dipping below the horizon. Only the horse remained on the beach, a colossal monument to apparent surrender. Sinon lay wounded nearby, rehearsing his lies. The trap was set. The Trojans would wake to silence and temptation. The horse rose like a siege tower made of nightmares. Trojan scouts watched from the walls, arrows nocked but unfired. "What madness is this?" Priam muttered from the battlements. Inside the Greek camp, flames devoured 10 years of memories. Tents collapsed in showers of sparks. The air reeked of burning olive oil and scorched hopes. Warriors boarded ships with faces carved from stone, some weeping openly, others laughing at the absurdity. Odysseus stood on his prow until the last moment, watching the horse shrink to a toy on the beach. "Athena, guide us," he prayed. The goddess of cunning had blessed the plan. Now she would test it. Aboard the hidden fleet behind Tenedos, tension coiled like a spring. Men oiled hinges, sharpened blades, practiced climbing ropes in darkness. 50 elite, Odysseus, Diomedes, Menelaus, Neoptolemus, Achilles' savage son, and others who had lost brothers, fathers, sons to Trojan spears. Sinon remained alone on the shore, abandoned amid the ashes. He had rehearsed his story 1,000 times. The Greeks sacrificed him to calm a storm. He escaped. The horse was an offering to Athena. Move it inside the walls or suffer her wrath. He practiced tears, practiced trembling, practiced the perfect blend of fear and sincerity. Back in Troy, the city stirred like a beast sensing blood. Scouts reported the Greek departure. Cheers erupted from the walls. Priam ordered the gates opened for the first time in a decade. Citizens poured onto the plain, dancing around the smoldering camp, looting abandoned gear. Children climbed the horse's legs. Women draped garlands over its mane. Warriors poked at its belly with spears. Solid oak, no give. Sinon stumbled from the dunes, hands raised. "Mercy! I beg sanctuary!" Trojan guards seized him, dragged him before Priam in the great hall where Helen once danced. The old king leaned forward on his throne, eyes sharp despite his age. "Speak, Greek, why does your army flee?" Sinon fell to his knees, voice cracking artfully. They drew lots for a human sacrifice to Poseidon. I was chosen, but I escaped when the storm came anyway. The horse, it's an offering to Athena. They built it to replace the palladium they stole. Take it within your walls, and Athena will bless Troy forever. Leave it, and her curse will follow you to the ends of the earth. Priam studied the young man's face. Something flickered in his eyes. Doubt? Pity? The hall murmured. Helen, silent in the shadows, watched with unreadable expression. Outside, the horse loomed like a god's judgment. If this deception has you on edge, smash like and comment. Would you believe Sinon's story? The warnings are coming, and they'll be ignored. Sinon's performance was a masterpiece. Tears streamed down dust-streaked cheeks. His voice broke at precisely the right moments. He described the Greeks' despair, their omens of doom, their frantic construction of the horse to appease offended gods. "The prophet said," he gasped, "whoever possesses the horse will rule the seas. The Greeks built it too large to fit through our gates, so they left it as a curse. But if Troy claims it—" Priam exchanged glances with his counselors. Antenor, ever cautious, whispered, "Burn it! Better safe than sorry." But the people outside chanted, "Bring it in! Bring the gift inside!" 10 years of siege had broken something in them. The sight of empty Greek ships was intoxicating. Victory without another battle? A divine blessing? Helen stepped forward, her beauty undimmed by war. "I know these men," she said softly. "Odysseus does nothing without layers of meaning. But the fleet is gone. The camp burns. What harm in a wooden statue?" Priam rose. "We have suffered enough. Let the gods decide." He ordered the horse brought within the walls, but not everyone celebrated. Cassandra, Priam's daughter, cursed by Apollo to see truth and never be believed, stood on the palace steps. Her eyes rolled white. "Do not touch it!" she screamed, voice raw. "Death rides in its belly. 50 armed men. Odysseus's trap. Burn it now!" The crowd laughed. Mad Cassandra strikes again. Children threw stones. Guards dragged her away, still shrieking prophecies of fire and blood. Then Laocoon, priest of Poseidon, strode forward with his sons. Spear in hand, he approached the horse. "You fools!" he thundered. 10 years of Greek treachery, and you believe this? Timeo Danaos et dona ferentes. I fear the Greeks even when they bear gifts. He hurled his spear. It struck the horse's flank with a hollow thunk. The sound echoed strangely, almost like a muffled cough from within. The crowd froze. Sinon paled theatrically. "See, the gods strike at blasphemy." But Laocoon wasn't done. He called for fire. Torches were brought. Then the sea boiled. Two enormous serpents erupted from the waves, scales glistening like wet bronze. They slithered across the plain with impossible speed, ignoring the fleeing crowds, straight for Laocoon and his sons. The priest raised his spear. Too late. Coils wrapped around him, crushing bones. His boys screamed as fangs sank into tender flesh. The serpent strangled them slowly, deliberately, eyes glowing with divine malice. Poseidon's judgment, or Athena's protection? When the monsters slid back into the sea, only broken bodies remained. The message was clear. Touch the horse's critics, and the gods strike. Priam, pale but resolute, gave the order. Bring it inside. The gods have spoken. If you're screaming at the screen right now, hit like and comment. Why do we never listen to warnings? The horse is moving. The Trojans breached their own walls to accommodate the horse, tearing down a section of the Scaean gate that had never fallen to Greek siege engines. Oxen strained. Ropes groaned. The massive wooden beast inched forward on rollers, dragged by thousands of hands. Cassandra was chained in the palace, her screams muffled by rags. Fire! Blood! The city dies tonight! Guards beat her silent. Apollo's curse was cruelest poetry, truth as madness. Inside the horse, 50 warriors endured hell. Sweat poured, limbs cramped. The air thickened with breath and fear. Odysseus pressed a finger to his lips. Silence absolute. Diomedes' hand trembled on his sword hilt. Neoptolemus grinned like a wolf scenting blood. They felt every jolt as the horse crossed the threshold into Troy, heard the cheers, smelled the city, baking bread, temple incense, unwashed humanity after a decade of siege. Night fell. The celebration began. Trojan streets overflowed with wine and song. Priam hosted a feast in the great hall. Roast ox, honeyed figs, musicians playing lyres that once accompanied Hector's victories. Helen danced, her laughter brittle. Andromache clutched her son Astyanax, whispering prayers to gods who had abandoned them. Sinon slipped away during the revelry, escorted to a guest chamber. He waited until the city slept in drunken stupor, then crept to the horse. A soft knock. 3. Pause. 2. The hatch opened. Odysseus emerged first, blinking at moonlight. The others followed like shadows given form. They fanned out, some to the gates, some to guard posts, some to the palace. Oil flasks ready, torches prepared. At the main gate, Greek sentries lay drunk or dead. Poisoned wine, courtesy of Sinon. The massive bars lifted with muffled creaks. The Greek fleet had returned under cover of darkness, rowing silently with muffled oars. Thousands poured through the opened gates like black water through a cracked dam. The massacre began. No battle cries, no mercy. These were men who had lost 10 years, friends, youth. They moved through sleeping streets with surgical precision, throats slit, doors kicked in, families slaughtered in their beds. Priam woke to screams, grabbed his ceremonial sword. Too late. Neoptolemus burst into the throne room, eyes wild with inherited rage. For my father, he roared. The old king died on his own altar, blood pooling where he had once sacrificed to Zeus. Hecuba clawed at the boy's face, shrieking curses. She would be dragged to the ships, madness claiming her until she leaped into the sea, transformed by grief into a howling bitch, or so the poets claim. Andromache fought like a lioness over Astyanax's cradle. Greek hands seized the child. Odysseus himself gave the nod. The boy was hurled from the battlements. The line of Hector ended with a sickening thud on the stones below. Cassandra was found in Apollo's temple, clinging to the statue. Ajax the Lesser, dragged her out by her hair, ripping her robes. Her curse extended even to her rape, truth forever unheard. The city burned, temples looted, the palladium stolen, Troy's 1,000 years of glory reduced to smoke and screams. If this horror has you reeling, smash, like, and comment. Could any city survive such betrayal? The dawn reveals the cost. 10 years of siege, 1 night of slaughter. The horse wasn't a trick, it was judgment. For Greek arrogance, for Trojan pride, for every life lost on both sides. What happens when cunning defeats honor? When warnings are drowned in celebration? When the gods themselves seem complicit in destruction? If you're haunted by this nightmare, hit like and tell us, is there such a thing as a clean victory in war? Let's watch the survivors pick through the ashes and discover that some curses outlive even victory. The Greeks moved like plague through Troy's veins. In the lower city, Menelaus kicked in the door to Paris's palace. Helen stood there, robed in white, face pale as marble. 10 years of war for this moment. His sword raised, then lowered. Love or hate, the fire had burned to embers. She went with him willingly, a ghost returning to a life that no longer existed. Odysseus found Priam's treasury, gold, ivory, the accumulated wealth of a civilization. He filled sacks methodically, but his eyes kept drifting to the burning libraries, scrolls of history curling into black snow. "We win the war," he muttered, "and lose the reason for it." Neoptolemus raged through the palace like his father's ghost. He cornered Polyxena, Hecuba's youngest daughter, at Achilles' tomb. The shade of the great warrior demanded blood for his own death. Neoptolemus obliged, slashing her throat over the grave. The earth drank deep. Aeneas woke to his household gods, speaking in his dreams. "Flee, carry Troy's future with you." He gathered his father Anchises on his back, his son Ascanius by the hand, and slipped through the chaos. Venus, his mother, cloaked them in mist. They escaped with a handful of survivors, the seed of Rome, destined to return and burn Greece in turn. The horse itself became a pyre. Greeks set it ablaze from within, the hollow belly amplifying screams of any Trojans who had sought refuge there. The fire spread to wooden buildings, thatched roofs, oil stores. Troy became a furnace. By dawn, the city was unrecognizable. The great wall still stood, but everything within was ash and corpses. The Scamander ran red for days. Vultures feasted for weeks. Sinon walked through the ruins, his angelic face smeared with soot. He had sold the lie perfectly. Now he surveyed the truth. A civilization erased because people wanted to believe in gifts. Odysseus stood atop the walls where Hector once defied Achilles. The sunrise painted the destruction in colors of blood and gold. "We won," he said to no one. His voice cracked. Diomedes approached, helmet under arm. "The men are loading the ships, Helen, Cassandra, Andromache, the treasure. And the horse? Burning, like everything else." They watched the flames consume the symbol of their victory. 50 men had ended an empire. But the cost, the gods were already tallying it. If this apocalypse has you speechless, hit like and comment, was the Trojan horse genius or the ultimate war crime? The aftermath begins. The looting was systematic. Greeks cataloged treasures like merchants, Lycian gold, Egyptian linen, amber from the north. Women sorted by beauty and status, queens for kings, princesses for heroes, others for common soldiers. Andromache was chained to Neoptolemus' ship, her eyes hollow. She had watched her son die, her city burn, her future reduced to slavery. Somewhere in the hold, Cassandra laughed madly. Finally, someone might believe her. The bodies were too numerous for proper burial. Greeks piled them in the streets and set them alight. The stench of burning flesh mingled with frankincense from looted temples. Priam's corpse lay where he fell, eyes staring at the smoke-blackened sky. Hecuba was found wandering the ruins, tearing her hair, calling for her children. When told of Astyanax, she collapsed howling. Guards dragged her aboard Agamemnon's flagship. She would die in Mycenae, sacrificed on Clytemnestra's altar. Aeneas's band slipped through a postern gate as the city fell. They carried the Penates, household gods of Troy, and a promise to found a new city greater than the one lost. Venus guided their ships west toward destiny and empire. The Greek fleet sailed at noon, bloated with plunder. The horses' ashes smoldered on the beach, a final insult. But victory tasted strange. Men who had dreamed of this moment for a decade now stared at the receding shoreline with empty eyes. 10 years of hatred, and the release felt hollow. Odysseus sacrificed to Poseidon at the water's edge. The sea god accepted the offering but sent no favorable wind. Athena watched from Olympus, her favor withdrawn. The horse had been her idea, but the slaughter exceeded even her appetite for cunning. As the ships cleared the Hellespont, a storm gathered on the horizon. Not natural. The gods were angry. Troy was gone. But the story wasn't over. If this devastation leaves you hollow, subscribe and comment, who really won the Trojan War? The curse is just beginning. The Greeks sailed home to curses disguised as triumphs. Agamemnon reached Mycenae first, greeted by Clytemnestra's smile and a net in his bath. Aegisthus's axe ended the king of kings. Cassandra, his prize, died beside him, finally believed in her final prophecy. I told you so. Menelaus returned to Sparta with Helen. They lived in strained silence, the war a ghost between them. Their daughter Hermione married Orestes. Madness, breeding madness. Nestor made it home safely, the only hero untouched by divine wrath. His line would endure. Odysseus wandered 10 years more. Poseidon's storms, Circe's spells, the Cyclops' cave, Scylla and Charybdis, each trial a payment for Troy's destruction. He returned to Ithaca an old man, killed the suitors, and died quietly, his cunning finally spent. Neoptolemus ruled in Phthia, but was murdered by Orestes in a temple, blood for blood. The Trojan survivors scattered. Aeneas founded Rome, but his descendants would sack Greece centuries later. Andromache bore Neoptolemus a son, then married Hector's brother Helenus. Bitter irony. Troy itself became a ruin tourists visited. Alexander the Great wept there, sword in hand. Roman emperors claimed descent from Aeneas. The story lived, but the city died forever. No one won. The Greeks gained treasure and trauma. The Trojans lost everything. The gods watched impassively, mortals entertaining themselves with destruction. The Trojan horse stands as the ultimate symbol. Beware gifts from enemies, yes, but deeper, beware the desperation that makes you believe in easy victories. 10 years of honorable war ended by one night of deceit. Courage defeated by cunning. Warnings ignored in the flush of hope. Was it worth it? The ashes of Troy say no. Thank you for witnessing the fall of the greatest city of the Bronze Age. If this tale of deception, destruction, and divine retribution shook you, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment. Would you have opened the gates? Share this with someone who needs to remember that some gifts come with a blade inside.